items, but there are a couple of things that we could consider putting on the agenda and open up the floor to other items. We'll wait one more minute.
Hi, Asha.
Thank you. If anyone else has any agenda items you want to put in the chat or just mention before we start.
I would. I did add a lot of things to that Google Doc that Peter set up, nuclear abolition resources. And as I said in my email, they came in as green and as hard as I could to make them not be green, they still are green.
Well, they're not green. They're probably not green anymore because I have to go in and okay them since I'm the owner. I don't know why that is, but I just did that. And I think if you look at them now, they'll probably be the same color as everything else.
Right. I mean, the same thing happened and Peter helped me and got mine looking great. Thank you again, Peter.
Oh, thanks, Judy. I could hardly hear you.
Oh, really? Can you hear me better now?
A little better.
Well,
no,
I suppose I come closer, Judy.
Yes.
I suppose I would like to know.
Is that better?
I'd like to know if people are going to be going to look at this set of resources that some of us have taken quite a big effort to enter things there. Hopefully,
the resource list will be on our agenda.
Thank you.
Good idea.
Okay, great.
All right, maybe we should get started. Okay. So I volunteered to be facilitator tonight. I'm Steve Baggerly. I'm with the Catholic Worker in Norfolk, Virginia, also part of the Hampton Roads campaign to abolish nuclear weapons. And I was thinking, why don't we start with introductions, just say who you are, where you're from, and if you have just any thought on nuclear weapons that has been impressed itself upon you as of late, if you wanted to share that, we'll just do that as our part of our introduction. And one thing that's impressed me itself upon me is that the United Kingdom is saying it's going to raise its stockpile cap to 260 warheads, which will be a 40% increase from its 180 warheads that it currently has. The UK is going to be building more nuclear weapons. Then you can just, and then we'll ask somebody else, the next person, to introduce themselves. So Cheryl, why don't you go ahead?
Yes, I'm Cheryl Spencer, sitting in Palo Alto, California. I'm a co-chair of the Disarm Committee of the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom, the US section. I was happy to see Biden and Putin repeat the famous Gorbachev-Reagan phrases. A nuclear war cannot be won and should never be fought. And it seems like they took on board a few things that went out in that open letter signed by 1,100 notable people like Jane Goodall, who you don't usually associate with nuclear weapons, but she did sign their open letter to the two presidents, and a lot of other important and famous people from outside our normal environment. So I'm hoping they will have the meetings that they've said they will, of the diplomats and the military people. We need new treaties. Thank you.
You want to invite somebody else to introduce themselves?
Can't hear you, Cheryl.
All right, Jackie, Jackie Cabasso, please go next.
Okay, hello, everybody. Jackie Cabasso. I'm the Executive Director of Western States Legal Foundation in Oakland, which is an affiliate of the International Association of Lawyers Against Nuclear Arms. I'm also the national co-convener of United for Peace and Justice, and a member of the coordinating committee of the Abolition 2000 Global Network to Eliminate Nuclear Weapons, which just held its annual general meeting. But most relevant for this, I'm also the North American coordinator of Mayors for Peace, working with the Hiroshima Peace Culture Foundation, which is a division of the city of Hiroshima. I'll call on Isaac.
Hey, so I'm Isaac Alston Boyd-Ticky. I'm in Brooklyn, New York, and I'm here with ICANN. Let's see here, something surprising. I guess I was just at the, Carnegie International Nuclear Policy Conference today. I found it very interesting how much the 9 nuclear states, and particularly the 2 big ones, the United States and Russia, are pushing hard, at least in their rhetoric, against the TPNW, and they really want to focus people back on the NPT. There was very not subtle comments by representatives of both governments, either completely avoiding the topic or just saying how it has to be they're in competition with each other and they're incompatible and all this other stuff. So I found that very interesting. But that's how it is. And I think it's a good thing, by the way. I think it's great that that's the conversation.
Isaac, invite somebody else to introduce themselves.
Go, Peter.
Okay, I'm Peter Burgell. I'm living in Salem, Oregon. I'm a retired executive director of Oregon Peaceworks, now working somewhat through Peaceworks, but mostly on my own. And I'm particularly interested in building a movement in the United States to abolish nuclear weapons. I'm particularly interested in the grassroots level and building up that strong movement that we had in the 80s and before that in the 50s. And I'll call on Bob.
I'm Bob Smith. I'm the founder, organizer of the Brandywine Peace Community a long time ago. Well, we restarted. We have a bunch of things coming up on around 4th of July and then Hiroshima, Nagasaki, but we just restarted our weekly leafleting and presences at the main train station in Philadelphia. And of course, Philadelphia is a predominantly city of color. And a banner poster we were circulating a few months ago basically was end white supremacy, abolish nuclear weapons. And it was interesting, that of course had a particular interest for people of color, and for some reason, they just lots of people took it in Center City. When we took it out to Lockheed Martin, nothing. But I just think that the racial element and the issue of white supremacy can really be connected with the dominant quality of nuclear weaponry. Oh,
go ahead.
I will, Judith.
Hello, I'm Judith Reynolds. I'm from Davis, California, and I'm with the Davis Committee Against Nuclear Weapons. And we have managed to send our resolution in support of the ICANN City Appeal to our rest of the cities in our county. And I will report more on that later. And I will call on Asha.
Thank you. My name is Asha Ashokan, and I'm the director of nuclearban.us. I'm particularly interested in building political support for the TPNW, also building a support from the grassroots level, because that's very important, as Peter said. I'm not surprised. I mean, it was very good to hear the statement from both the president of Russia and the US. But if they are serious about eliminating nuclear weapons and not to go for a war, I think they should sign the TPNW as a commitment. I think this commitment was earlier done by the US, so it's a recommitment. Yeah, it's a statement. It's a diplomatic statement. I don't know how much I should take it as seriously. I'm not surprised by the budget request, or the amount that has been spent last year, according to the ICANN report. So, yeah, but hopeful about eliminating nuclear weapons sometime soon. Susan.
Asha. I'm from Massachusetts, and the Mass Peace Action, the co-chair of the Nuclear Disarmament Working Group. And we've got lots of things going. We just had our public engagement movement building meeting that Asha was at. And we're taking up what to do about the Hiroshima, Nagasaki Day events. And I agree with, listening to what Robert is saying, and also Peter, about building on grassroots, that we need to get out there and relate to people's needs and figure out good ways of doing it. And I know Jackie is a great proponent, as am I, of the Poor People's Campaign that seems to get it all together. And so I guess I support that, and I'm always looking for ways of connecting issues of nuclear weapons and who it is who is paying for it, why we have them, and real needs of people. Let's see. Seth, did you already go?
I did not. And perhaps I can also make that be prompted by what you say you're interested in, talk a little bit about this report that that Asha also mentioned about nuclear weapon spending. But first, yes, my name is Seth Sheldon, and I work for ICANN. And I should also take this opportunity to apologize for having to leave before we end. Probably I'll have to drop off in around 15 minutes. But what was our prompt? Was it something surprising? Was
just something that has grabbed you or stood out to you?
Yeah, okay. I think I will plug something that we've been talking about a bit in this report. And just in case you haven't seen it, maybe I should put it in our shared resource document too, along with some other things. But this is what Asha had referenced earlier, this report about the increase in spending over the pandemic that perhaps doesn't surprise all of us, but maybe nonetheless both horrifying and perhaps useful to our advocacy. But one of the things in it that surprised me, at least to the extent I had no idea, because I don't think anyone had yet quite tried to pointedly wrap their head around this, is that in this report, we do the usual thing that people try to do, which is to estimate how much money the various nuclear armed states spend on nuclear weapons, but also to identify how much of that money in those contracts goes to lobbyists, and perhaps, I think rather innovatively, tries to identify those think tanks that are receiving money from the industry. And it's not, we couldn't get full clarity on all of the numbers, but we estimate in the report that up to $10 million go back to think tanks, and we call them out for which ones they are. That caused quite a bit of stir, especially from those that were so identified, which of course we think is good. And so perhaps that's something we all can use as well as we try to unravel some of the arguments against the work that we're doing and trying to figure out who's saying that and who's funding them. And who hasn't gone? Did Bruce go? I think, no, okay, I'll call him Bruce.
Thanks, Seth. Hey, everyone. Bruce Shea. I'm in Phoenix, Arizona. Cold front came through today. It's only 106 instead of 120 today. So pleasant weather. I like the, so I'm a member of Women's International League for Peace and Freedom, U.S. section, and volunteer on the Disarm Committee. And the title of this meeting is very interesting to me, the legislators. I don't see any reason why we shouldn't be as loud in the halls of Congress as the lobbyists and such, and the think tanks that Seth mentioned. So that's my main interest, is how do we get enough people, and how do we get loud there, so when we walk in the door, they know our faces, and are more concerned with our thoughts than the few, 1% with the money. And I don't know if this is in the news or not, but I've seen a lot of articles. I was surprised, being aware of the nuclear arms movement in the 80s, but never really involved in it. So new to kind of being an activist in it, and somehow stumbled into this debate about the validity of first, no first use type of stuff. I was surprised by the somewhat polarization of the two camps that think about that talk about that. And so I'm just surprised by that, and I've learned a hell of a lot reading the opinions of those on both sides. So that's all I have. See who else? Anybody else? I think Kathy Altman has.
Hi, Kathy here. I'm from Tucson. We're not quite as hot as you, Bruce, but close. That's called competing for last place, which is a lot like the conversations, about ending nuclear weapons. So on the legislators and electeds, initiatives that we're doing down here, we've had a few meetings with legislators. We actually have 2 Arizona state representatives have signed on to the letter, the UCSPSR letter to Biden, which supports the back from the brink pieces as well as, total abolition. And that's actually pretty amazing. And we've spoken to a couple of the candidates who are also running for a congressional seat down here. The candidates, of course, won't sign on because one of them said she thought it might hamstring the president's ability to do international negotiations. So we went round and round on that, but there we have it. And I'm also working on the Tucson City Council as individuals and have 2 likely also sign-ons coming up. That's it.
And Ellen.
Yes, I'm with Women's International League for Peace and Freedom and co-founder of Proposition 1 campaign for a nuclear-free future. And I see that we have 6 co-sponsors along with Eleanor Holmes Norton as of now for HR 2850, the Nuclear Weapons Abolition and Economic and Energy Conversion Act. And I'm really pleased that there are a number of
number of folks who are interested in helping to work on this with the legislators. I am impressed with the work that Bruce Shea has done in calling, and I'm hoping that other people will catch on to his enthusiasm and also be calling on its behalf. And I'll be glad to share any information if you would like.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you, everybody, for coming. And so we're hoping to go 90 minutes at the most. I know Seth has already said he won't be able to join us the whole time. Is there anybody else who would likely be having to step out before then that you know already? Or okay, well, we'll try to keep it to 90 minutes or less. And I guess our second order of business is there anyone who would be interested in being the note taker for this meeting and then get the minutes out afterwards when you're able to pull them together? Denise usually our note taker, and she's not able to make it. She's in transit working on getting her mother some more medical help. And I guess I'll try to be our note taker. All right. And so now we should review our agenda. And so we're going to have an agenda, and actually part of that agenda is announcements. And so I think it was Asha put in the chat a Thursday meeting to build TPNW support. Maybe that will come under announcements. Okay. And so some other agenda items beyond announcements are maybe some things we should touch on at least are the chart that Denise sent out of resolutions and proclamations. She's trying to compile a chart of all the resolutions and proclamations from across the country. And then Peter started the Google document that Cheryl has added on to, which is Nuclear Weapons Abolition Resource List. If anybody wants to talk about that, we'll touch on that. And from our last meeting, there was one item was brainstorming of how to expand groups or to start new groups. And if anybody had more thoughts on that. And then in the chat also just now was Hiroshima Nagasaki Day events and actions. And any other items, and then announcements as well. Any other agenda items that we should run through? Any suggestions? Okay.
Steve, I guess I would like to suggest that we, if we have a little bit of time at the end, if we could return to a brainstorming function to see if there's other things other than the resource list that we could be working on together.
All right. All right. Well, why don't we start there? Why don't we start with that Google Doc? Does anyone have any input on the Google Doc, the Nuclear Weapons Abolition Resource List that has been started and is going around?
I can speak to it, having spent a few hours with it last night. The Women's International League, through the Disarm Committee, has actually created a lot of resources in the last 2 years. And so I placed links to some of those in the guide. For example, we found a gentleman who's written 2 plays about nuclear weapons and people's reaction to them, and he's willing to send you the script. So that's under the drama section. We found lots of films about nuclear weapons last year, so there's a guide that you can link to about to tell you about films, some that are famous and some that are less famous. The speakers, though, I noticed, and that was something we spoke about in our last meeting, was who can we suggest as a good speaker on abolition of nuclear weapons. I believe that section is still blank. I ran out of steam at about midnight, so I think people should think through who they've heard and who is a, you know, maybe we've put Daniel Ellsberg and Ray Atchison in there. I don't know, you know, I believe Ellsberg is about to be talking to somebody's group in the next few days. Anyway, there are lots of things out there, and I think this is an excellent idea to try to bring them as lists in this Google Doc. So I hope you will all go and have a look at it and think where you can add things to it, and then obviously go and look at what's been suggested.
Thank you.
And apparently, if you go in, it shows us green, and then your comments, it says on the right-hand side what you've done, but then it takes Peter, who owns it, to come in the next day and accept your suggestions. And then hopefully it'll come through in black, and then the blue will show that it's a hyperlink. Thank you.
Peter.
Yeah, thank you very much, Cheryl, for going in there and adding a number of items. There have been a lot of items that have been mentioned in these meetings, and I've noted some of them, but I haven't put them in yet because I kind of wanted to see whether the committee would follow through and actually become the co-authors of this document. I know that ICANN has a lot of resources, WILF has a lot of resources, and a bunch of the organizations have a lot. Abolition 2000 has a lot of resources. And so I think it would be incumbent upon all of us to just go in there and add a few. It doesn't have to be comprehensive yet, but ultimately that would be the goal, would be to have a place where anyone from any movement, I mean, any one of the nuclear weapons abolition groups could go and find a library of resources that and that new people could also find resources there as well. So I'm hoping that people will go ahead and jump in there and add a few things from their local groups or the whatever groups that they're members of.
And so would you suggest that there'll even be links to like ICANN, and then people can go and access everything they have, or links to the other groups you mentioned? And
yeah, I mean, a link to ICANN's resource page would be good.
And Jackie.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I looked at it a little bit before the call, and you know, it's a kind of a daunting project if you really think about all the resources that we all have access to. So I would suggest that we try to think about resources that could help with the common thing I keep hearing in this group is building a movement, which I totally agree with. So for example, a new resource that Abolition 2000 has is a series of 10-minute interviews with people from a wide range of fields, and including Ambassador Gomez White, who was the chair of the TPNW negotiations, addressing the question, very open-ended question, how do we move from a dysfunctional world to a world without nuclear weapons? And so that all of the speakers coming from their different areas are suggesting that we need to sort of think differently about how all our issues relate to each other, because in order to address nuclear weapons, we have to fix the dysfunctional world. Well, we're fixing the dysfunctional world, we're also addressing a lot of these other issues. So I'm just saying, you know, and you look at it, go, I would say, you know, let's be a little strategic about what we post and post things that are thought-provoking, that are informative, not try to post everything we have, because it could turn into a completely unmanageable monster.
Thank you. Any other thoughts?
I see two hands, Susan and Isaac.
Okay. Susan.
Okay, this is primarily a tech question from being quite tech challenged. I went on to that and I wanted to see if there was a movie that we had shown that was very effective, but I could not get on just by clicking. The other items, smaller items, I was able to, but not the films. So just to relay that difficulty.
Would that have been something I posted, which was a PDF?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, I will. Usually it's deep inside our website, but when you click on it, it should bring it up as a PDF.
Yeah, it didn't happen for me. But that may just be me. I don't know if it,
maybe somebody else could try it.
Tried it also, just with films. But thank you very much for doing all that.
And Isaac.
So happily, I am in grad school and law school right now, and I need an entire history of the abolition and non-proliferation movement. And so I am adding everything that I think is pertinent to it. I will check that link, Cheryl, and make sure it works. And if it doesn't work, I'll find one that does, since I'm already in there. But I just want to let you know, I'm going to obviously thin it out right now. It's a whole lot of stuff, but and then afterwards, I'll probably have to categorize it a little bit more. But right now, I have it at the very bottom, so it doesn't bother anybody.
Great.
Thank you.
So Jackie, just to say, I did put Gomez's speech, your 10-minute video, as it appears on YouTube, is in what I added to those short. You asked for somebody asked for short videos, and I put it there.
Okay, great. I'd like to add the others because there are,
right.
For example, a Korean woman athlete from South Korea who played on the unified North-South ice hockey team in the last Olympics. So it's a very wide range of views. Very interesting.
Any other thoughts on this resource list?
Well, but maybe with one link, you can go to all 8 videos rather than listing each video individually. Because that's how it appears somewhere on your website. I did not put anything from the Abolition 2000 website, but they do have a bunch of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the names should be listed. You don't have to watch them all. That's the point. You can choose. So I think but I'll figure that out. I'll figure out how to post them without taking up a huge amount of space there.
Thank you.
And Susan again.
You're muted, Susan.
Sorry, I had put in the chat a request if anybody had any good petitions on abolition to send to Biden. And is that in the list?
So actually that moves us to our next thing. Was Denise has begun a chart with all the resolutions and proclamations. She's trying to collect all of those from across the country.
But that's different from a petition.
Yes.
And
I'm
so
sorry.
I did give you, we have one on the Action Network, which is to the US Senate and the President to sign the TPNW. So I put that in the chat some minutes ago.
Okay, thank you.
And then somebody else put one. I noticed.
Sorry for that misunderstanding.
Edith has her hand up and so does Kathy.
And Judith, and then Kathy.
Okay, now I just want to point out, I mentioned it briefly in my opening remark. We have sent a resolution in support of the ICANN cities appeal, supporting the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons to the cities in our county. I want to encourage everybody to try that move. I've put on Peter's list a copy of our resolution if you want to take a look at what exactly I'm talking about. And one of the cities has actually contacted me, and we're going to have a chat, I hope sometime this week. They're hesitant, putting it mildly, but I think perhaps if I chat with them a bit, they will at least think about it, because it took us a good year to get our council on board. So I think it's going to take time, but it's well worth the effort. And I will have more to say about that at the next meeting, because I think I'll have to add another paragraph to the resolution to satisfy the concerns of one of these cities. But it's something very definitely worth pursuing.
So you're saying that you sent the Davis, California resolution to some other cities?
No, I did not do that. Our resolution is really quite progressive. And I think the other cities are a bit more conservative. So I made a resolution based on the ICANN cities appeal supporting the treaty. And I think it's kind of nice. And I got Seth's okay for it. So he seemed to see fine, and he says, good luck. So I sent it out to, as I say, to cities with a long cover letter citing all sorts of petitions and things that let the city council know why they should be doing this. And as I say, I've heard that from one of the mayors. So I'm very pleased with that. And I hope that turns out to be a constructive thing to do. But it's going to take time, but it's very worth the effort. I think if you all have cities and that you haven't contacted yet, and contact their mayors, contact their council members, say this is a good thing to do and why you think so, and take a look at our resolution. And of course, feel free to modify it to the max, depending on what your cities are interested in. That's something we are working on right now.
Is it in Denise's list of resolutions?
It's in Peter's list, the doc thing under resolutions. Because I put our city council resolution in there too, our Davis City Council resolution, and the one we're sending out to the cities, other cities.
Might want to
Can you
send
tell
your
us
city.
the county? Which is your county you're talking about?
Yolo County.
Yolo.
Yolo County, yes.
Might want to send your resolution to Denise's list of resolutions as well.
Fine, that'd be great.
And Kathy.
You're muted, Kathy.
I apologize. I just wanted to comment back to, I think Judith had asked about sign-on resolutions to go to Biden and members of Congress. There's two of them. I just posted the links to the one that USC and PSR initiated, and Denise has been spearheading a large effort on that, the preventnuclearwar.org or U.S. officials letter that has state reps and council members, lots of electeds of types some have started to sign on, and I posted the link in our chat.
Any other thoughts on either list, the resource list or the resolution and proclamation list? Okay.
I have a question. Sorry. So let's see. Judy, you said you got permission from Seth at ICANN to take their city's appeal resolution and modify it a little bit. Now, do you think that permission extends to us? Can I take your resolution and extend and modify it for my county?
Yeah, I wrote this up for I am with this group, Davis Citizens Against Nuclear Weapons. Anyway, and so we support the treaty. So I was working with them, getting this resolution written. Then I sent it to Seth and I said, what do you think? And he said, good luck. But he did not say, don't do it. He can prove it. But I'm saying that as written, it might not satisfy your cities. You might have more liberal or progressive cities than we have in our county. And if so, maybe take a look at our city council resolution, which is also on the doc file. There are different ways to approach different city councils. This is a suggested resolution that supports the ICANN cities appeal, which I think is an excellent appeal. Have you all looked at that, I hope? Because if you haven't, take a look at it. Because this is and then look at our resolution, you'll see how much it is based on that. You can write, I'm sure, more, you can write less. If you're in the mood, you can talk to Seth after you do it and see what he thinks. I just felt, because I'd worked with him before, that he'd want to see it. And he said, okay, fine, good luck. And we may have good luck, we'll see what happens. It might take months, might take another year, but it's very well worth the effort, I think. Because the more cities that get on, the better. In fact, the ICANN has a list of cities that have already signed on. They include Santa Barbara, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Berkeley, of course, Davis, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you can, and those are the ones in California. They list cities in other states also. I mean, sorry, yeah, in other states that have already signed on. So, and some of them have their resolutions in print. You can even click on those. Most are just names of the cities. So you'd have to look further to see what they're doing.
And I would think any wording for any of these petitions are all public domain. You could do with them as you wish.
Yeah,
Right.
The state one that we did in Oregon a couple of years ago, I think it's pretty good language, and I would recommend that to you. And also, they had a bunch of folks working in Eugene, Oregon, to do one of these, and they put divestment right into the resolution, which I was afraid would be a poison pill, and I haven't heard any more about it. So I think you need to talk to your friendly council people who understand the things that are going on internally in the council, what kind of push and pull there is, and find out what they think, rather than writing it in without their participation.
Right. I see them as two different things. One is the resolutions supporting TPNW, and then a different style of resolution asking your city to divest their investments from nuclear weapons companies. And then on this Saturday, courtesy of Asher and others, there is a whole webinar about that. It's 8 a.m. our time. It's been a Nuclear Ban US is widely advertising it. So I think we're going to learn more about how to do that. Right, Asher? Muted.
I'll share the link and the details in chat. So it's about pressuring the profiteers, how to, pressure the profiteers, and who are the nuclear weapon companies and who are investing in nuclear weapon. All those informations will be there. Yeah, I'll share the details in the chat box.
And then in Norfolk, Virginia, which we're in the most militarized area in the hemisphere, if not the world, and we're just using the city's appeal, the ICANN city's appeal, which is just asking them to just, do the bare minimum. So, just say that the government should sign on to the TPNW, and not getting into the back from the brink, all of those different points and all that, just trying to get city council people to just agree to one simple thing. But anything else on these lists? Asha?
I just said, Steve, that is even difficult sometimes for that one thing, but it's a big step in the right direction, I think.
All right, we'll move on. And something, Peter, that you maybe this is the time you said other resources to work on together. What's your thinking on that?
I wasn't thinking about resources so much as wondering if there would be a mechanism of some sort by which we could provide some helpful coordination between groups. Maybe these meetings are the beginnings of that, but some helpful coordination between groups that are working on the movement building aspects, and specifically that are seeing the strategies that are being undertaken. For example, these resolutions as movement building tools, and can we help other cities and other groups do that? And is there some mechanism? That's one thing, for example. So finding ways that we can coordinate and help increase the breadth of this movement. It's kind of brainstorming.
So WILF has 40 branches throughout the US. So and we're about to have our triennial Congress where we bring everybody together. So we're actually developing a workshop to help teach our branches how to create one of these resolutions and get it passed with their local community. So any of the national organizations that has chapters or branches or whatever you like to call them, I think it's incumbent upon us to get those individual branches to do something, say along the lines of a resolution in their city. As far as us helping some other organization, that's a harder job, but we're going to try and do it within our own organization, which covers a lot of cities.
I think, I don't know whether we do have like a list of cities or cities that is already in alignment with the treaty. So if we don't have, I think it would be a good idea to create an Excel sheet or something where all this information are in one place. Like, for example, in MA, which are the cities that is aligned, in DC, which are the cities that has passed the resolution. So I think it would be a good idea. I mean, it will take a lot of work, a lot of time and effort.
Isn't that what Denise's Google
Yes.
Doc does?
Oh, okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
she's done
Oh,
most
yeah.
of that.
Yeah,
already.
yeah, yeah.
And also, I think
Forgot it.
ICANN has a list of cities that have signed on to their city's appeal. Long list. So if you go onto their website, you'll see it.
There's also a map list where you can just, at least on this continent, where you can pull up the map and see if your city's on it.
Okay.
A list that's visual.
On what?
Where is that map?
I believe it's on the Prevent Nuclear. I'd have to check if it's on the preventnuclearwar.org or if it's on PSRLA webpage, but I know it exists.
And what does it list again, please?
It's a map and it has, dots of the city where, it identifies the cities that have passed resolutions in support of TPNW.
No matter what kind of resolutions.
Correct.
Oh, interesting. Okay, thank you.
Any other thoughts on that topic?
Yeah. Steve?
Yes. Sorry. Thank you, Jackie.
Okay, two things. One very focused and one a little more broader challenge. But I created this toolkit, this Mayors for Peace campaign toolkit, initially for this group because it suggests ways that we can move simultaneously forward with recruiting mayors to join Mayors for Peace, to support the ICANN Cities Appeal and the Back from the Brink campaign. So this has a lot of links and suggestions about different ways to do that so that we can accomplish several things moving forward simultaneously. The other thing is, I'm going to keep bringing this up every breath I have, which is the Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival, which has picked up Martin Luther King's unfinished work, has woven together 5 interlocking injustices: systemic racism, systemic poverty, environmental devastation, militarism and the war economy, and the distorted Christian narrative of nationalism. And they call it a moral fusion campaign where these things are inseparable. And one thing that you may or may not be aware of was at the beginning of this month, a resolution was introduced in the House, H-Res 438, Third Reconstruction, fully addressing poverty and low wages from the bottom up, which comprehensively endorses the Poor People's Campaign platform, and which includes, we must heal, now this is the legislation, we must now heal the nation by demilitarizing US foreign policy, borders, and policing, including by cutting military spending by at least 10%, ending forever wars, repealing existing authorizations of use of military force, restoring Congress's war powers, pursuing diplomacy over war, moving toward nuclear disarmament. So, and in the Poor People's Budget, it explicitly, which is a separate document, it explicitly calls for completely eliminating nuclear weapons. So it's already in there, but we can't just walk in there and say, we want you to highlight this. We have to be willing to work on all these other interlocking injustices at the same time. But yesterday there was a mass hybrid online and in-person assembly where perhaps millions of people were watching it. I don't know, but a lot of people were. And they talked about the whole spectrum again. So I'll put a link. I encourage you to
Thank you.
Look at it and sign up, join your state organization. And they're building towards a mass mobilization in Washington, DC in person, June 18th, 2022. So that's going to be probably the biggest turnout in DC for a long, long time.
18th of next year is there.
Yep.
June 18th of next year. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
And Cheryl?
Yes, I attended this via their web streaming. They had real people in North Carolina, and then when I looked, there were 1,600 people were watching it on the link I was watching. I was very impressed. They kept bringing in video recordings of various people. They said, now we have a very important message. And President Biden from the White House gave his full support for their third reconstruction, which is what they're calling this, raising us up from the bottom. He acknowledged Barbara Lee's efforts, and that there's a poor people's campaign and they're trying to raise wages, and there's a lot of poor people. It was like a 3-minute video where President Biden agrees with everything they're doing, which I thought was very impressive. And he took the time to make that video. And I know when you ask somebody to make you a video, they put you off, but you know. Did you see that, Jackie, where the president came in and gave his full support to this?
Well, I will, yes, but I will say he's given his full support to the domestic agenda, not the foreign policy one. And they have reported that in private meetings when they've met with it, when they met initially with his transition team and then, continuing. So they're continuing to put the pressure on. They're not going to let up. But it was very significant that the president of the United States acknowledged that they were being heard. And he said, the most important thing he said is eradicating poverty is my theory of social change. So, yeah.
I was hoping I could find a link just to his remarks, but I haven't spent time looking for it. And Wilf has been a member of the coalition around Poor People's Campaign for, ever since it began 2.5 years ago. So we have correspondence and you.
Good.
Anything else on what we've touched on so far?
Asha, did you include the link to the profiteers call?
I did.
Okay, thank you.
It's in the chat.
Okay.
I can send an email to this this group after this meeting. I can send an email to this group after the meeting.
Thank you.
That event also in a moment. Maybe one other thing someone had put in the chat was Hiroshima Nagasaki Day events and actions. Does anybody have, who put that in the chat? I forget, but Susan, you want to start us off?
No, we're starting and here in Massachusetts, and I'm just wondering what people across the nation are doing. So I just sort of throw that out there. I mean, here in Massachusetts, we're going to be hopefully showing a movie called The War Games. Ira Helfand will lead off the discussion and be discussion afterwards. Various communities do their own events, and Mass Peace Action is going to be having a page for people to list events and resources. So I was just wondering what other people are doing. I do want to say that we decided that we're going to be a part of what's called the Peace Wave, which is international, stemming from Japan, and that's it.
So we, Wilf took part in those very widespread events last year, the 75th anniversary. And this year, that period coincides with this Congress that I mentioned, our triennial Congress of National Wilf. And so some of the things that we're doing in workshops we're leading, like Ellen's leading a workshop on radiation effects on women and how they're different from the radiation effects on men, and all the nuclear waste business. So our brand, but we have about 10 branches who every year religiously do something around those 2 days. So I'm sure they're going to be doing things to bring it to their local communities. But there is not something big like Rethink Media, the Still Here Coalition did last year. But there's a lot of stuff that they have still on the web about what they did last year with op-eds and sample this and sample tweets. So one could redo some things that we all did on the 75th anniversary. The 76th is never as eye-catching, is it?
Right.
Bob.
Yeah, Brandywine is on August 7th going to be out at Lockheed Martin and King of Prussia, beginning with a hopefully larger presence, wrapping around that intersection. Everybody holding a picture of the child, Hiroshima child, with abolish nuclear weapons, support the UN nuclear ban treaty, and some big ones blown up, that kind of thing. And then people walk up to the main entrance, and a few people get arrested. It's the first act of civil disobedience there since the pandemic. We've been up there, but no civil disobedience. And the other 2 days, we're sort of going around and around with things, but one day we wanted to be in the City Hall, Philadelphia City Hall courtyard, reading the resolution that the Philadelphia City Council passed just before the pandemic, which was very much hung on support for the UN treaty, very much, and has led to something of a campaign and discussion around divestment and retirement funds, which gets really dicey in a city like Philadelphia, which is very union. And sometimes people have a hard time making up their mind in terms of pressing that, whether they're talking about militarism or I should say, war or nuclear weapons. You say war and militarism, and you're dealing with a lot of unions that have a lot of veterans, then you get nuclear weapons are a different thing, at least in perception. So anyway, we plan to be in the courtyard one of those days. The other day, we wanted to be try to get as many people to go to as many PNC banks, which of course is a large recipient of nuclear weapons money to profiteers. And I thought for sure Lockheed Martin was on it. I must have been seeing things, because I see Lockheed Martin in my sleep. But it wasn't. And so we're sort of wondering what to do about that. The advantage of that is, of course, taking a picture for a playbook from George Lakey about campaign building is PNC Bank and rooftop, or not rooftop, mountaintop removal, which it got PNC to draw from that. And, PNC has, at least as its roots, it was a Quaker bank. It started as a Quaker bank. Of course, Prince came to this country and did good and ended up doing really well, and I say that as a Quaker. So that we're looking at. The other thing that we've really been looking at in terms of something on those days is the Vanguard fund. Vanguard. Everybody has it seems everybody has their retirement with Vanguard. It's really quite large. It's it's an investment firm, you should probably all know. It's worth about $6 trillion. It's the largest in the world. And of course, its three big areas are nuclear weapons profiteers, handguns, and prisons, private prisons. And that's all sort of disappears with some. We've been out at their conventions every year in Philadelphia, and it's very hard to get people interested. It really is. I mean, I'm a member of a large Friends meeting in Philadelphia, the largest Friends meeting in Philadelphia area, Germantown, and I can't get a budge. But I think that it being right next to Lockheed Martin physically, I mean, it's only a couple miles. It's international headquarters from Lockheed Martin. I think we want to do a little more in terms of that. And I think we're going to use Nagasaki. What the hell, huh, Steve?
Sure. Well, here in Norfolk, we've been hoping to start some kind of regular presence at Newport News Shipbuilding, where they've begun construction of the Columbia-class submarines to take the place of the Tridents, starting in about 10 years from now, a little less than 10 years. And so we might actually go there on July 16th as well, the anniversary of the Trinity test,
Good, yeah.
beginning of the nuclear age, and then something on the 6th and 9th as well. Any other August 6th, 9th things happening?
Well, if I could announce something that we're doing at least for July 4th, actually on July 3rd, which I understand, maybe Jackie can confirm this. The official approval, U.S. approval for dropping the bombs occurred on July 4th, 1945. And so we've been out, we always do a big thing, something in Philadelphia. We usually sort of have it in connection with this old city parade, and which is very big, and we actually even get a little upbeat, the bubbles and make things, and it's very large. But this year there is no old city parade, nor nothing public by the city in Philadelphia. So we're doing a banner display at what's called it's basically in front of Independence Hall, a banner display emphasizing nuclear weapons abolition, the treaty, of course, all those banners. And there's just thousands of people out there now. I don't know why the city canceled but anyway, there's just thousands of people around those tourist areas. People seem to love looking at the cracked bell and
Thank you, Bob. Susan?
He was before me. Do you have anything about Hiroshima and Nagasaki Day, Jackie?
Yeah.
Or shall I just go on? Okay, well, why don't you go first then?
Okay, so Livermore Nuclear Weapons Lab is one of the two labs that designs all US nuclear weapons. And we've been going out there for about 38 years now. And usually until the pandemic, always had at least a few dozen people symbolically being arrested for blocking the gates. We couldn't do that last year. Last year we did a virtual thing. This year we've decided to still go with virtual, but we're gonna have a live component. So our keynote, I should say, I wanted to share with you the name. We're again trying to make these connections. Our theme is nuclear weapons and climate change. Shine a light, stop the hate, lower the heat. And Dan Ellsberg will be our keynote speaker. We'll have one of the co-chairs of the California Poor People's Campaign. We're trying to get a youth activist from the Marshall Islands. And a few of our speakers, probably Dan, will actually be live out there on August 6th, live streamed. The rest of the program will be pre-recorded and shown, and the live parts will be recorded, and then on the night the whole program will be live, will be streamed again on the internet. So that's what we're doing.
And Isaac?
Oh, I just had a.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's it.
Back. Although we do focus a lot on the victims in Hiroshima, also wanted to focus on victims of nuclear testing here in the States. And I know the people who are involved in working on RICA, and I don't know if people in this group have information about that, or where to go to get more information about that. I know, or I would go to AREPA, but does anybody else have any other thoughts?
Lily Adams.
Yes, right, Lily. And where's she with?
Union of Concerned Scientists.
Okay.
Peter?
Ian Zabarte just wrote a pretty good article about that. And let me think what publication it was in.
What was the name?
Ian, E-A-N, Zabarte, Z-A-B-A-R-T-E. He's a Western Shoshone activist, used to be active with us at the test site years ago and has continued to be working on the nuclear weapons issue and native sovereignty issues ever since. He's a lawyer now, and he's pretty dedicated. And he just wrote an article. Let me go. I'll go find it and see what publication it was in. But that's a handy one. I know Isaac was in line too.
So,
or Cheryl, are you directly addressing that?
I'm addressing Susan's request for where to go. The Alliance for Nuclear Accountability. This is one of their main projects, and we've had Tina Cordova speak to several webinars. She's the one working with the Trinity fallout, people in New Mexico who suffered from the Trinity test. That was the very first nuclear weapon that was ever exploded. So she, she's going to be talking again at our triennial Congress. I had a talk to an American Physical Society thing, which is the Professional Society of Physicists, of which I am one. So anyway, yes, quite a lot, but Alliance for Nuclear Accountability, you Google them, they have a lot of stuff on RECA and who gets it and who doesn't.
Peter?
Susan, this article by Ian was in the Nuke Watch Quarterly in fall of 2020.
All right, Isaac, thanks for being patient.
No worries, it's all good. So one thing, Jackie, you were talking about Livermore. I actually happened to, in my last class, it was just on nuclear security, get a little interview there, or actually meet some people from there virtually, of course. And one of the things that I don't know if you guys are including in your kind of like your events, but the thing that most think tanks and most of those research places are doing now is all digital recreations and bomb like what the impact would be in regards to bombs and how things we do. And so all of the design is done digitally, and you have a lot of not young people coming through the kind of physics world, but you also have a lot of people coming through on the political world, and they're tied up in that. And so it may be a group you can address because if right now what we have is according to some of the experts I talked to, is we have a dearth of people who actually know what it really is to light off a nuclear bomb and then see the fallout and see the response in real time. We have all this data that says here's what the yield will be and here's what the destruction will be, but we don't actually know what will happen. And there also are people who are tied into it from the domestic realm. For example, there's a lot of carbon dating that we do now that it helps with research that is really tied in with the fact that we had for decades done all this testing and now it's going away. And so those are the kind of things you might be able to bring up, and you may get a lot of traction amongst people who are heading in that direction or who want to kind of get involved in that specific kind of that specific track.
Thank you.
Can open up our announcements to everything that's going on. So Asha, why don't you let us know what's happening Thursday?
Great. Thank you. So on Thursdays, we are, so let me just go back a bit. So April 24th, I believe like many of you have attended the event on building political support for the TPNW or the ban treaty. As a follow-up to that one, a few organizations met to strategize on how to build this political support and public support in the US. That ended up in kind of like, creation or creation of a group called US Nuclear Ban Action Group, and that's specifically focusing on building political support for the ban treaty, building political and public support for the ban treaty. So WILF has identified how, I mean, a few like 100, more than 100 members of the Congress, the target members of the Congress, whom we should, like approach either for ICANN pledges or for the HR 2850, which is the Norton's bill, which Cheryl was talking about earlier. So what we are doing on Thursdays is kind of like meeting and kind of like identifying campaigners in each city. And on one way, we are the campaigners or the activists in each city writing to their writing to their members of the Congress and asking them to either sign the ICANN pledge or to co-sponsor the Norton's bill. As of now, like we have six members of the Congress who is co-sponsoring the Norton's bill. That is one way. The other way is kind of like the organizations directly writing to the members of Congress and asking them to sign the ICANN pledge or the 2850. So this meeting is kind of like focused on a list, and based on that list, like we're trying to get more support on a political level. We actually have a terms of reference for the group, which I have shared with many of you, but I will share with this group as well for your comments and inputs. And please attend, if possible, please attend those meetings so we can have like more discussions and how to build this movement and how we can influence and get more ICANN pledges and co-sponsors for the 2850. And the two other things, I was in touch with the Norton's office. So they are trying to see, I requested to give a video from Norton where she is calling on other members of the Congress to sign the ICANN pledge or to show their commitment for nuclear weapon eradication, which I hope to get it sometime soon. Submitted 2 weeks ago. I had a phone call with her legislative director very recently. So he told me he will follow up again and come back to me. And then another video request is submitted to Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, which they sort of approved, but still waiting to get the video. So yeah, they're very positive about sharing the video, but still waiting to hear. So those are few strategies we have been using. And yeah, Susan, I see your hand up.
You all have been doing wonderful work. I don't think I can go to yet another meeting, as wonderful as this seems. And I'm wondering if you can send on the notes to your Thursday meetings to people in this group so that we all get the benefit of what you all do, because this seems like it's right up our alley.
Sure. I'm also recording those meetings, so the recording link can be shared. But I'm afraid that the link won't be there for more than 1 week because of the space, because I deleted it after 1 week. Yeah, and I think Cheryl has already shared about this one. Wolf is doing a phone campaign. So we are also trying to see, like, Nuclear Age Peace Foundation have more than 10 interns or something. So we're trying to see how we can bring those interns, and they make the calls, or they make the calls to the members of the Congress, asking them to sign the I Can Pledge or sponsor the 2857. Yes.
Judith?
Me?
Yes, Judith. Yes.
Okay. I am amazed at the number of groups that I've heard about today that I haven't been aware of. And I'm beginning to wonder, Peter, could your Google Doc thing set up a part where we can have a list of all the groups working on petitions, all the groups working on ICANN Cities Appeal, all the groups working on letters. It seems like a lot of things that people are working on, and that we can gather all these groups and put them in one place so that people who are interested can go to that and say, what do I want to do? As opposed to.
The beginnings of that are already up there. There's a list of organizations, and it could be subdivided by foci if we knew what they were.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Is there a way to get something out where people can actually select the issue they're interested in that has to do with the nuclear bomb elimination, or is it just too many organizations to even think about something like that? Because I've just heard of groups I've never heard of before today, and I'm looking at this list
Well,
here.
if people would start slapping groups and links up there, and also put a notation as to what they're focusing on if they know.
That's a good idea.
And I would go back in there after a while and sort that out.
That'd be a good idea. But something, in other words, because Asha, what you just said, a lot, it sounds very interesting, and I haven't heard about all of the groups that you were mentioning, and it's just very interesting. And I think it'd be fun that people can, and the WILF groups and so on.
So you're saying on the resource list, put the names of groups and what they're working on.
Under organizations?
Organizations.
What their main.
Under other organizations. Okay.
And Jackie.
Well, just to say that a lot of groups do not have a single narrow focus and are working in a bigger picture way. So it's not, you can't automatically say, this is my group and this is what we're focused on.
No, but I'm meaning for this group, we are.
I'm talking about from this group.
No, I'm saying we're involved with the TNPW, for example. And I'm saying that I've heard a lot of groups that I haven't heard of who are also involved in that. And, and the fact you're involved with something else is fine too, of course. But I'm just focusing for the moment on his contribution through the Google Doc.
We have about 5 minutes till we hit our 90-minute mark. And maybe I'll do this.
Ellen, I haven't spoken for a long time.
Okay, go ahead, Ellen.
Yeah, I've been adding information in the chat, links in the chat to stuff that we've been talking about. And I specifically want to mention the last week's meeting to the Nuclear Ban US Zoom, if anybody wants to watch that, because it's going to be taken down tomorrow before the next call. So you might want to look at it this evening. But there's all sorts of information in there.
I've got a couple things, one related to that, do you all know how to save the chat?
Oh.
You just go to the chat, and there's three, down at the bottom, there's three little dots, and you click on those, and one of them will allow you to save it. And then another one will allow you to go to where the computer saved it, so that you'll be able to put it where you want it. Well, that's one thing. The other thing is, I don't, and this is specifically directed to Isaac and Bruce, I'm not sure that you guys are on our listserv list. And if you would like to be, please put your email addresses in the, if you'd like to be, put your email addresses in the chat, and I will add you.
closing thoughts or next steps that we need to work on? One piece of business to do would be to decide on our next meeting date and to decide if anyone would like to be the facilitator of our next meeting on that date.
Yeah, I see Susan's and Asha's hands up.
No, Susan, go ahead, because I saw your hand was up early.
I'm not volunteering, but in a minute, I just had wanted to talk about the no first use abolition controversy and to say that in Mass Peace Action, we don't see it as a controversy. We see it as all together, and we have a no first use campaign that is national, but also working for abolition in any way possible. And we have a TPNW list, and lots of people in that no first use campaign are also working for abolition. So
Good.
sorry to end with a thorny thought at the end.
Glad that you're making it less thorny.
Yeah, I have a quick, is there anybody other than Susan from MA, Massachusetts? No, okay. Okay, then it doesn't, because we are working on 2 bills in MA. So I just wanted to see if there is anybody else in this group. So we could kind of like work together on building support for that one, the 2 bills, yeah.
Is there anyone working on divestment, moving the money resolutions on this call in your town?
Yes, so we're working on it. Those are some of the bills that Asha's talking about. We're talking about divestment from nuclear weapons and also divestment from companies that sell weapons to Saudi Arabia.
So we are going to be having a webinar during the WILF US Congress in August, and we're hoping that people who are actually working on resolutions will join us and talk briefly about what it is that you're doing. So I'll put my email in the chat if you want to get in touch with me and let me know that you're doing that, anybody, and I'd appreciate it.
Susan, are you a member of WILF?
No, only because I don't have the time.
Oh, okay.
But I do a lot of stuff with WILF. You're right.
Right. Okay.
Well, you'd be welcome whether you're a WILF member.
Yeah, right. But this divestment issue is great. And I think Asha is working on divestment too.
Yeah.
Right.
So we're working on 2 bills. I mean, maybe 4 bills, because the other one is Jonathan. We need to hear from him as well.
That's the divestment of nuclear.
That's the divestment bill. And there was another divestment bill. There was, I mean, people testified for that bill, and we didn't get enough time to testify for that bill.
That's about selling weapons to Arabia.
So for this 2 bill, we are trying to make sure that, like, we are informed ahead of time so that more people can testify. So that's what we are trying to do. And the other thing is that getting more co-sponsors for the bill, and also appointing the committee and the committee members and the chair and influence them. So those are the work that's being done in MA at the moment with respect to 4 bills, state legislative bills. Yeah.
Before we lose any more people, I think we ought to decide on the next meeting date and time, next meeting date and facilitator.
Do we want to have it on a Tuesday, on the 4th Tuesday again?
That would make it July the 27th.
Yeah. I'll be glad to set up the Zoom.
Thank you, Ellen.
Great.
Going once, going twice, Tuesday, July 27th. Same time,
5:30.
5:30 Eastern time.
Yep.
Anyone interested in facilitating? It was really fun. I have to say that. If anybody wants to have a lot of fun and be the facilitator.
I love to see you having a lot of fun.
And I'll go ahead and do it again if people don't feel like I've run you through the ringer.
No,
We do not want to take
great to see.
we do not want to take that happiness from you.
Susan was raising her hand.
Susan?
Steve, what a wonderful idea. You did such a great job. And I was just waiting.
Yes, you did.
And thank you all. And thank you.
Yes, thank you, everyone.
With all of your help, with all of your input, and doing great things.
Peter, when you go on Safe Check, it says show in folder. Do you have to click on that?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
That tells you which folder on your computer it's put it in. It's usually a folder called Zoom. And if you're like me, I save the chat many times because I never know when it might get cut off. And it's very clever. It just overwrites the previous version, but keeps all of the wording since the beginning of the meeting, or since when you join the meeting. If you join the meeting late, you don't get to see the chat before you joined. It's a feature of the thing. But if you came in at the very beginning, you say save chat, and
what if you don't click on show in folder?
You then go look in your directory for a folder called Zoom.
Oh, okay, thank you.
It's in your documents.
Okay.
Directory.
And then Zoom is made, and then the date and the name of the call, and then it's inside that. Automatically made.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
And it's text. It's a very compact text file.
Okay.